Most of my adult life, I've been chasing simplicity. It's been almost a year since our last update, and that year's been a pretty good example of the pursuit. Moments of absolute peace, shadowed by moments of total exhaustion. I have this vivid memory of being 8 years old, alone in my backyard, playing with toy cars in the dirt. I was completely at peace. It was a moment of bliss where everything felt right. I remember thinking so clearly, I want to be 8 forever. I didn't want to grow up and deal with the stress of responsibilities. But, unfortunately, Peter Pan and Tinker Bell never showed up to fly me away to Neverland, and I grew up anyway. I read about Thoreau's cabin in the woods in Walden, and about the sadhus living in Himalayan caves with nothing but a loincloth. That sparked a fire in me to return to the backyard toy car version of happiness. Mandy and I started experimenting. We lived in tiny houses in Hawaii. We even tried living in a cave for a month. I lasted 2 weeks before realizing that a life without chocolate wasn't a life I wanted to live.
Alright, I'm too old for this.
I spent a few months in an ashram, convinced I was meant to be a monk. Mandy and I had been together for a year and a half when one of the monks asked, "If you become a monk, what about your girlfriend?" I told him I hoped to find an ashram where we could live together. The monk just smiled and suggested that a simple life in a small home would likely be the best path for us. At the time, I scoffed. It sounded so ordinary. I was determined to find a better way. But here we are, a decade later. Mandy and I are building the very thing that monk suggested, a tiny home. Previously on No Formalities. Last year, we finally took the leap. We got a shipping container to convert into our tiny home and got it anchored down to the earth. It took a while, but I finally managed to frame the first wall and get a door and windows in. It's a start, but getting even this far was anything but easy. We've watched a lot of sunsets and changing skies from this property now, but I'm not nearly as far along with the container build as I'd hoped to be. The plan was to be settled in before the summer heat hit, but as the seasons changed, the finish line just kept moving further away. Between physical injuries, rising material prices, and some blunt reality checks, we've encountered plenty of obstacles in our path. As the blind prophet in O Brother, Where Art Thou said, I cannot tell you how long this road shall be. The road has definitely been winding. For now, our vision is still a work in progress, and home is still our little camper. It's cramped, and we never thought we'd be living in it for 2.5 years, but it's where we are. I'm trying to stay optimistic now that there's a light at the end of the tunnel. This year, we even caught a glimpse of the northern lights right here on the property. It was one of those moments of accidental simplicity, checking a major item off my bucket list without even leaving Florida. The build is slow and the obstacles are real, but the view is still pretty good from where we are. Here's a look back at the roller coaster ride of this past year and how things went from smooth to rough and back again. Once we had the power, water, septic, and shipping container in place, it became clear that our budget was no match for the rising cost of living and materials. I had to shift my focus to generate some extra income, so we decided to add a rental campsite to the property. It was tough to see the trees come down and be pulled away from the container build, but I reminded myself these were necessary stepping stones. I cleared the lot and installed the septic for the campsite, and then the heat of the Florida summer and the physicality of the work had me questioning my life decisions.
My whole life I've been digging hole for the ghosts that speak from my throat. Sometimes I say horrible things, terrible things, and I know, and I know. My whole life I've been digging holes for the ghosts that speak from my throat. Sometimes I say horrible things, terrible things, and I know, and it goes.
By the time I was in the trench installing water and power lines for the campsite, I was exhausted. Every shovel of dirt felt like the straw that would break this camel's back. This work might look easy in a YouTube time lapse, but don't let that fool you. It's anything but easy. Is it worth it? Sure. Easy? Never. But nothing worth having ever comes easy. Mandy gave me a hand when she could, and our neighbor brought his tractor over to help me backfill the trench, and I was very grateful for both. By the time the campsite was wired and the water was connected, I was starting to think that maybe the simple life ain't so simple after all. My mind and body needed a break. We hit the road for the mountains and stopped to camp and hike along the way. There's a Mandy. In a brutal display of nature's hierarchy, this dragonfly has captured its own kind and is eating its brain. I like turtles. We packed up and got back on the road, and before we knew it, we were driving through the mountains. The farther we drove, the more scenic the landscapes became. With so much to stop and see, I started to worry we wouldn't reach our destination by dark.
Just make a loop around. Oh, wow.
This spot had me feeling like I was sitting in a Bob Ross painting, or like I was Owen Wilson with all the wows I was saying.
Oh, houseboats. Wow, that's super cool.
As the sun dipped, the road started feeling less like a drive and more like an amusement park ride with all its twists and turns. We made it to the retreat center just in time for sunset and settled into our yurt as the rain moved in. We woke up to a beautiful misty sunrise, so I had to go outside and bask in its glory. Staring at the scenery, I was feeling much closer to the light at the end of the tunnel I had been yearning for at home, and my projects couldn't have been further from my mind. We met up with a group of our friends at the retreat center where we spent a week hiking, swimming, meditating, and relaxing. By the end of the week, all the stress had melted away. I felt like that 8-year-old kid again, at peace and exactly where I was supposed to be. I was feeling brand new, like nothing in the world could faze me, and I was ready for whatever complications the world had to throw my way.
You should go around the other side and look up. It's pretty crazy.
I started this journey toward a simple life with a utopian vision of being financially free and perfectly relaxed. I remember someone once commented to me that a utopian reality is a fantasy. I was offended then because I was still chasing the dragon of everlasting bliss. But now, I think they were right. I've heard it said that this world is built on friction. Like a crustacean outgrowing its shell, we are forced out of the discomfort of confinement so we can grow into a new shell. I've also heard it said that when we learn to suffer properly, we suffer less. I think it's necessary to be okay with being okay, instead of always longing for something better. I like the idea of Buddha's middle path, living somewhere between extremes, where we are able to take everything in stride without being bogged down by the stress of having too many chocolate bars or not enough chocolate bars.
At one point I was thinking, I just want to thank you.
Like the family song.
Yeah, I want to thank you. Ah, this is how we're doing it.
Oh, so why we gonna take the picture?
Just I'm so small.
Shall we?
We can squeeze it.
Right.
Oh yeah, true.
Oh, it's wet though. I'm gonna leave him with a wet bottom.
You have to stand in the sun for a minute. It'll dry.
With your bums up in the air.
You ready for
What are
it?
you doing? Oh, let me move. Hold on.
Mandy and the ladies dried their bums off in the sun, and we said our "until we meet agains" as our group of friends hit the road. We had to stop again along the way to soak in the mountain lakes and rivers. I couldn't stay 8 forever, but I can find that same 8-year-old peace by letting go of the deadlines and the should-haves. If I were still in my childhood backyard playing with the same toy cars, I'd probably be bored by now. I need to remember that I'm just playing in a bigger sandbox now with bigger toys, and the view is still pretty good.
You ready, Freddie?
I guess so.
I need to,
I could just sleep right here on this rock.
yeah, do a hammock out here and chill.